In 2014, after finishing the 10th grade, I had the chance to join an archaeological excavation. At school, I was an activist and had managed to get acquainted with the head of a patriotic search party who invited me on an expedition. History had never been my favorite subject, but the romantic idea of tent life, along with a decent paycheck by local standards, convinced me to say yes. Besides, this time, the expedition was not searching for missing soldiers' remains. It was a commissioned dig for valuable Mansi artifacts. The trip started off on a high note, but one deeply unsettling event would later overshadow everything. A recent incident brought it all back into my mind. After packing our bags, and during the usual parental lectures about safety and wearing a hat, Siberian summers could be unpredictable. Frost in the morning, scorching heat by midday. We boarded the train. There were about 45 of us in total, 4 from our search party, 5 kids from an orphanage, 7 university students from a nearby city, 12 school children from Kazakhstan, and the rest, a mix of supervisors, archaeologists, and other staff. We got to know each other on the train, and while I remember everyone clearly, I will focus only on the ones who played a direct role in the events that followed. Understanding these people will help make sense of what happened later. First, there was me and my friend Danil. At the time, we were just your average nerds. The main difference between us was that thanks to my school workload, I was a bit sharper and, more importantly, way more sociable. That worked out well for Danil, who was shy and timid. He got into a lot of interesting experiences just by tagging along with me. Then there was Gelya, the leader of the orphanage kids. Even the supervisors called him by his nickname, as he insisted on correcting anyone who used his real one. At first, most people treated the orphanage kids, whom I'll refer to as DD, with a sort of patronizing kindness, but that did not last long. In reality, they were troublemakers, swearing constantly, lazing around, and stealing cigarettes and booze from the older guys. Most of the group grew to despise them. Still, a few of them weren't so bad. Next up, the university students. They were on an internship and had a great sense of humor, making them the most enjoyable company. I will single out Lenya and Volodya, 2 best friends. Lenya was a big, bald, intimidating-looking guy, but despite his appearance, he was always cracking jokes, often crude ones. He loved pranks, like scaring people or sneaking something unpleasant into their tents. Volodya, on the other hand, was calmer, smarter, and the first one I really bonded with. The chief was the leader of the Kazakh group. He got his nickname partly because of his resemblance to the character from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and partly as a joke. Seeing a group of Kazakhs living in the tent with a massive leader at the helm was an amusing sight. But unlike his fictional counterpart, the chief was secretive, petty, and gossipy. That said, he did genuinely care for and protect his group. And finally, there was Slavan, Vyacheslav Evgenovich to everyone else. He was the supervisor of our team and a seasoned excavation veteran, fearless, selfless, and brimming with small-town charisma. He was practically the protagonist of this whole story. During our time in the Khanty-Mansiysk Autonomous District, he worked as a scout, searching for potential dig sites. That's all for introductions. I know it's a long setup, but I like stories to be told properly and how they happened. Plus, this information might be useful for those trying to piece together what really happened. Now, on to the story itself. I'm not sure how scary or interesting it will be, but I swear, every word is true, or at least, as true as what I saw and heard. When we arrived at the excavation site, we were stunned. The tent camp was enormous, set in a vast clearing with a small river on one side, a road on the other, and a pit for trash and toilets behind us. Our tent was on the outskirts, between the makeshift bathhouse and Volodya and Lenya's tent. Behind us was Slavyan's tent. After a quick rundown of how things worked, Slavyan handed us pallets, a portable stove with a kettle, flashlights, and a bunch of other useful gear. This made us the kings of tent life. We didn't have to wait for water to boil in the communal vat, since we had our own burner. The first workday was tough but fun. We were split into teams. Ours included Volodya, Lenya, Gelya, and the chief. Since we were young and inexperienced, Danil, Gelya, his friend and I were put on stretcher duty, while the older guys handled leveling. Hauling stretchers was not easy for 2 17-year-old nerds, but we managed, and in the process, we got to know everyone better. After work came the best part: dinner, bathhouse trips, and campfire gatherings with a guitar. The first week flew by, and soon it was time for the weekend. On Saturday, Lenya and Volodya showed up at our tent, grinning. They had a plan: try out Lenya's homemade moonshine and hang out in our luxury tent. Danil and I had never even sniffed alcohol before, but we did not refuse. For the students, our tent was a great spot, cozy, well-equipped, and conveniently out of the way. As the night deepened, our cheeks grew redder, and the atmosphere got livelier. Lenya, ever the entertainer, started telling ghost stories, though his playful manner made them more amusing than scary. Then, out of nowhere, Volodya suggested, "Let's go wander in the forest by the toilets. Maybe we will scare someone." It sounded like a great idea, so we set off. The clearing itself was not heavily wooded, but the forest beyond was thick and nearly impenetrable. It would have been easy to get lost at night, so we stuck close together. But the moonshine dulled any sense of danger, and since we were walking in a straight line, we were not worried. The forest had a strange, almost peaceful charm, and we quickly forgot about our original plan to mess with people near the toilets. We kept walking until Danil suddenly needed to relieve himself. He disappeared into the bushes, and when he came back, he was holding some branches. "Look at this," he said. "What is it?" "I found it on a bush," Danil replied, holding out a makeshift cross that was tied together with twigs. "Maybe it just fell from a tree," Lenya suggested. "Come on, give it here." Volodya snatched it from Danil's hands and examined it closely. "No way. There's a hole in it, probably from a nail." "Where?" Volodya's face darkened. He spoke quietly. "On the bottom." "So, the cross was upside down." Lenya let out a nervous laugh. "Damn." Then he looked up. So did we. Hanging from the branches and nailed to tree trunks were dozens, maybe hundreds of inverted and right-sided crosses. Some were tied with twine, others hung from strings, swaying slightly in the breeze, and among them were strange, unrecognizable shapes, woven from twigs and rope. "What the actual fuck?" Lenya muttered, voice tight with disbelief. For the first time that night, no one was laughing. Just like the Blair Witch Project. "Damn it," I blurted out. "You're right," Volodya agreed, recognizing the reference, while Danil, trying to act nonchalant, pretended he had just gone off to use the bathroom. In truth, he was terrified. That is when we noticed we were standing in an oddly small clearing, sharply distinct from the rest of the forest. Volodya wanted to climb a small pine tree to rip down one of the strange hanging symbols, but as I scanned the area, I spotted something unnaturally shaped in the darkness. We moved toward it, and soon discovered it was an old dugout with a wooden roof. "Where the hell are we?" I muttered. Lenya grinned, but his smile did not hide his confusion. "Guys, maybe we should just forget about this," Danil said, clearly uncomfortable. "I'll go take a leak too," Lenya chimed in, awkwardly. "Maybe I'll find something cool out here too." With that, Lenya walked off, and Volodya and I began to explore the dugout. It was small, simple, more of a makeshift shelter than anything. The walls were lined with thin tree trunks, and there was something like a shelf or table protruding from the wall, along with a wooden couch in the corner. Though it appeared empty, we decided to crawl inside and see what we could find. I followed Volodya in, immediately heading for the couch. When I looked underneath it, I froze. There, again, were the same strange crosses and twig figures we had seen earlier. We scrambled out of the dugout, bolting back into the night, calling for Lenya, who had obviously gotten distracted. We had been exploring the dugout for so long, there was plenty of time for him to relieve himself. Lenya did not respond when we called, so we started moving in the direction we thought he had gone. After a few minutes, we spotted him about 15 meters ahead, standing motionless, facing away from us, in an unnaturally still pose. "Lenya, stop screwing around. Even I'm scared now. It's a total mess out here. Just look at it," Volodya called, but Lenya did not respond. We exchanged a glance and slowly began to approach, still calling his name. Without warning, Lenya whipped around, and I nearly choked on my breath. Danil let out a scream so loud, it made the birds in the trees take flight. Lenya's face was deathly white, his eyes black as if nothing was behind them, and his expression twisted into something grotesque. Lenya yelled out, his voice wild with laughter, to scare us. At the sight of his face, My instinct was to laugh too, apparently. It's my defense mechanism in scary situations. You're a fucking asshole, that's who you are, Danil barked, still shaking. Lenya was wearing a birch-bark mask, with round black glasses perched on top. The darkness made the mask look otherworldly, and for a moment, we all saw Lenya as a terrifying figure. Lenya pulled off the mask, his face flushed with laughter, and his eyes watery. "Where did you get that?" Volodya asked. "Remember when Palach told us about Mansi culture on the train? They used to make masks out of tree bark. I spent half the day making this one, just to mess with you guys. You, Vovochka, are a real character. If I'd taken you into the forest alone, I bet you would be shitting yourself right now. Huh. Oh, and did you make that stick thing out of branches?" Volodya's face darkened. "Wait, wasn't that you?" Yeah, guys, I chimed in, rolling my eyes. This is like a classic horror movie. First we all scare each other, then we realize it's just a prank. But something is still wrong. It wasn't us. "I swear, it was not me who made those," Lenya insisted. "And it wasn't me," Volodya added. "I swear it was not me either," Danil exclaimed, his voice high-pitched. "Let's just get the hell out of here already." At that point, we completely forgot about our original plan to prank the girls. We started trudging back in the same straight line we had walked earlier, but as we neared the edge of the forest, I turned back for a final glance at the clearing with the dugout. Something about it still felt off. We finally emerged from the forest, only to realize we could not see the toilets anymore. "Okay, wait a minute," Lenya said, stopping everyone. "Where are the toilets?" "Looks like it's because of you, you freak, that we ended up taking a wrong turn somewhere," Volodya said, irritated. "Wrong turn, huh?" I grinned, referencing another movie cliché. "Stop it already. This isn't funny. Where did we go?" Lenya's voice had a hint of panic now. "Look, there's the shift truck," Danil shouted, having managed to climb a tree. We made our way toward the camp, but none of us could explain how we'd ended up on the other side of the forest, walking in a straight line. Regardless, Lenya and I, in his stupid disguise, managed to scare the Kazakh group in the neighboring tent. After that, we collapsed into bed. The next day, the scouting party arrived to clean up and pick up supplies for the upcoming week. Slavyan stopped by to check our progress. We told him about our eerie forest adventure, and he seemed both amused and surprised. In all his years working in the area, he had never come across that clearing, even though it was so close to camp. I also asked about getting souvenirs from the excavation, and Slavyan suggested we look through the waste piles. He explained that sometimes finds were overlooked or discarded with the dirt, and without proper registration, those objects held no real value. The following week, after lunch, while everyone was wasting time on the break, Danka and I decided to raid the dump for some souvenirs. Only a few minutes into our search, I found a large piece of ceramic about the size of my palm. It was covered with carvings of animals and a few bizarre, cartoonish people wearing masks. Despite the somewhat playful nature of the images, they looked more like something from the Mayan culture than from the northern tribes. The only thing that gave away their origin was the image of deer, which, upon closer inspection, triggered some unsettling feelings. "Look, Danka, it's just a part of a Lovecraftian bas-relief," I exclaimed, holding up the find. "That's awesome," Danil replied, immediately diving back into the sand. It was clear he wanted to find something just as impressive. "Hey, what's up with you two?" Gelya suddenly appeared from behind the rubble. He often dug a hole in the waste piles where he would sleep, sometimes even while working, which had made him somewhat unpopular. "Holy shit, that thing is bigger than my palm. Let me see." I handed him the ceramic, and he inspected it closely, flipping it over, then sniffing it for some reason. "Listen, you could make a ton of money off of this," he said. "There are bonuses for big finds. Just bury it deep and say it's a new discovery." "Yeah, sure. The guy with the stretcher just happened to find a huge piece of ceramic. No problem," I replied sarcastically. "I don't need the money. I'd rather take this home." I reached for the ceramic, but Gelya yanked it away. "Fuck, you're a real moron," he protested. "Cut the shit," Danil muttered, stepping forward. I snatched the ceramic back from Gelya's hand, and we walked away toward the site. Later, around the campfire, we drank tea and played guitar. One of the guys, Sashka, was a virtuoso who loved to shout Kish songs with his friends. From then on, I found myself listening to them sometimes. At some point, the group began singing the song Dagon, and I suddenly remembered the bas relief. "I've got something for this," I yelled, rushing back to the tent to grab my find, but to my shock, it was not there. I immediately grabbed a nail, and we went over to the tent where the DD kid stayed. "Gelya, you're about to get your ass kicked," I stormed. I was certain he had taken it. "What's going on?" Gelya emerged from the tent, casually wearing nothing but his underwear. "Where is my ceramic?" I demanded. "What?" Gelya acted confused. "You lost it yourself. Go look for it." "I know you have it," I shot back. "Fuck off." Gelya started to give me some rambling speech about thieves' codes and fairness, though he had no idea what he was talking about. He was just talking pure nonsense to act like he was better than us. I responded that if he had the ceramic, I would make him regret it. The next day, much to everyone's surprise, except for Danka and me, Gelya found a huge piece of ceramic. "Look, a huge ceramic," he called out, holding up the bas relief. I walked over to it. "Bullshit," I muttered. "I found that in the dump yesterday, and now this idiot is pretending it says." Enraged, Gelya lunged at me with his fists, but I was not about to back down. Being taller, I kicked him square in the jaw, something I'd seen in an anime once, and accidentally broke a piece of his tooth. The elders quickly separated us and forbade us from getting back near each other. Gelya kept the ceramic, and though I was tempted to take it back, I eventually calmed down and let it go. That evening, Lenya and Volodya invited us to play chess. During the game, I told them the story of the bas relief and Slavyan's words about the clearing with the dugout. This piqued their interest, and we decided to visit the dugout again. We set out in the same direction we'd taken the last time and started walking deeper into the forest. After some time, it became clear that we had walked just as far, if not farther than before, yet we had still not found the clearing or the dugout. We went deeper, retraced our steps, and tried to follow the same route we had taken back to the toilets, but we quickly realized we would be lost before finding anything. So, we turned around and walked straight, eventually emerging at the toilets. In the end, we had not found the clearing, but we did manage to come out at the right spot this time, not on the opposite side of the forest. It was all very strange, but we chalked it up to being tipsy and disoriented in the dark. Maybe we had turned somewhere without noticing, and the dugout was simply on the other side. We'd started making our way back to camp when Volodya suddenly hissed at us, signaling us to be quiet. He pointed at the garbage pit about 30 meters away. A massive, terrifying bear was tearing through the food scraps. We ran back to camp, crouching low to avoid being noticed. We quickly informed the authorities about the bear, who, trying to avoid panic, herded everyone into the baths and the shift bus while calling in the hunters. The bear, oblivious to us, continued devouring the food remains until the hunters arrived. When they showed up, they scolded the authorities for placing the garbage pit so close to the camp, and they concluded that with so many miners around, it would be unsafe to try to scare the animal off. So, the bear was shot. That evening, a heated debate broke out around the campfire about whether killing the bear was the right decision. But then, suddenly, Vadik, one of the DD kids, and Gelya's buddy, came running towards us. "Guys, Gelya has completely lost it," he gasped, speaking in an incoherent, excited frenzy. "What happened?" we asked, alarmed. Yes, he's drinking bear blood, along with sand." The elders immediately rushed to the garbage pit and found Gelya there. He appeared normal if you could ignore the wild look in his eyes, which was not all that unusual for him. They scolded him for being alone near the garbage pit after the bear incident. No one was allowed to go to the toilet alone, and for drinking bear blood, which could carry diseases like trichinosis. The next day was the weekend. Saturday passed quietly, but on Sunday morning, Volodya and Lenya discovered that the first layer of their tent had been torn by claws. "Looks like the bear was not alone." Palich, one of the bosses, smiled. "Well, you guys are lucky it's just the first layer, huh? We will have to call the hunters again." When the hunters arrived, they were both unsettled. The claw marks did not match the typical shape of bear claws or teeth. They stayed at the camp until evening, just in case. That evening, an incident took place. For greater effect, this story will be told from Lenya's point of view. So, we went to take a shit, right? I took Vovchik with me. I can't go alone, you know? So, I'm sitting on the toilet, and I see Vovchek climbing on the roof, and I'm like, what the hell, Vova? You're nuts. He sits there, not saying anything, just pointing. I look out from behind the wall, and there they are. Bears. 2 of them. Fucking huge. Well, they're cubs, but still, fucking healthy. Right then, I remember every prayer I know. Hell, even one in Hebrew. I'm sitting there, thinking about Alaska, almost crying, but I don't want to shit anymore. I mean, I finished, but I did not want to get up. Meanwhile, Vovchik's like, what do? We have to run. So we run. I did not even wipe my ass. And run they did. They screamed so loud that in the ensuing panic, many people could not hide fast enough. The bear cubs, who, though young, were still dangerous, had already started approaching the camp. Slavyan was the closest to where Volodya and Lenya had been, and without hesitation, he grabbed a chainsaw, roughed it up, and ran toward the bears, yelling at them. This caused a panic among the bears too. Meanwhile, everyone managed to take cover, just as the hunters arrived, guns drawn. That night, 2 bear cubs lost their lives. Later, a sort of wake formed around the campfire. People drank and mourned the cubs, who had become victims of human interference. Some argued that it was necessary, but everyone agreed on one thing. Slavyan was a hero. The DD kids were the most upset, but, as it turned out later, for a very different reason. We were about to sleep when a tipsy Slavyan burst into our tent. Guys, we need your help. What happened? Damn it, I'm tying this asshole to a tree in the forest. Who? Gelia, who else? It turned out that the children from the DD told Slavyan that Gelia, being the oldest, had been mistreating them. Slavyan tried to talk to him, but something happened during the conversation that made Slavyan lose his temper. What exactly Gelia did to the kids, or what went down in Slavyan's tent, remained unclear. Slavyan just told us it was none of our business. But it was hard to understand what could have upset a grown man to the point where he considered leaving a teenager tied to a tree in the woods at night, especially when bears were just around. Slavyan, are you out of your mind? I did not want any part of this, and even though I was not fond of Gelia, this seemed cruel. Seriously, Slav, maybe we shouldn't. Danka was in shock. You won't help? Fine, stay out of it. By the way, is this yours? Slavyan asked, holding up the bas-relief I had forgotten about. Yes, I said, unsure, reaching for it. Slavyan tucked it back in his pocket. Good night, guys, he said, and left the tent. As he did, we heard the leader's voice. What are you thinking about? It's none of your business, Slavyan snapped and went inside. The next morning, we woke up early. Gelia was missing. We didn't go to the excavation site. Instead, we searched for Gelia, with everyone except the scouts out combing the area. We covered a good distance in the forest, but found nothing. By evening, only Slavyan returned from the scouts. We figured the chief must have told the authorities what we overheard in the tent, and we braced for a confrontation with them. But since Slavyan was friendly with Palich, nothing happened. He must have convinced them that the chief was lying, or maybe he claimed he wanted to tie Gelia up, but didn't. We searched for 2 more days with no results. Some thought Gelia had gotten lost, others believed he fell in the river, and some even wondered if Slavyan had tied him up and the bears ate him. But the bears were gone, and no remains were found. Plus, it would have been a struggle to sneak a large Gelia into the forest and tie him up with no one seeing. On the 4th day, police and volunteers arrived from the nearby town. They decided to deport all the miners, including us, ahead of schedule. However, the next train was not for 2 days, so we acted as camp guards under the authorities' watch while the adult archaeologists continued searching for Gelia. The day before we left, we were paid, and as we packed, a UAZ crashed into a woodpile. A drunk Slavyan stumbled out with a bottle in hand. He did not respond to the boss's questions, silently headed to the bathhouse, and when he came out, he muttered, "I saw Gelia," before being taken to the boss's house. After that, we never saw him again. The excavation team was also gone, and we left the next morning. A few weeks later, when I returned home, Volodya contacted me. He told me that Slavyan had been taken to the police in the city on the same day that we left. The entire scout team, 6 people, including Slavyan, had vanished. No bodies, no weapons, nothing. Only Slavyan was found alive, and he had gotten drunk on the way to camp. They tried to pin the blame on him for Gelya's and the scout team's disappearances, but Slavyan blamed Gelya and refused to say anything else. The story shocked me, and we came up with several conspiracy theories to explain what happened. Eventually, I forgot all about it for years until last week. While visiting my parents, I bumped into Slavyan on the street. I barely recognized him. His face was unkempt, and he looked anxious, almost fearful, like he was expecting a trick. Slavyan did not speak with his usual confidence. We went to a pub, had a couple of drinks, and talked about random things. Suddenly, Slavyan brought up the whole story yet again. He had been held by the police in Siberia, tortured to find the missing people, and then spent a year and a half in a mental hospital. He tried finding work in the city, but couldn't, so he returned to his hometown. Bro, they wanted to blame everything on me. But you believe me, right? It was him. He did it all. Gelya? Yes, that little bastard. He's the reason they... Who is they? Remember the scout team? We were digging in that swamp. The stench was unbearable. And then, Gelya. I saw Gelya crawl out of it. He crawled out of the swamp. And they came after him. They just followed him like it was nothing. He needed 7. He was the first. And there were 6 of us. That made 7. I wanted to go too. I don't know why, but he would not take me. He said I had something that he needed. The ceramic. You remember that, right? I gave it to him, got in the car, and came to you. Should have left it buried, man. Should have left it buried. And you know what else I heard? Slavyan added. What? The swamp has dried up now. Another search team went there. They wanted to find my scouts, but they ended up losing their own. 1 man and 4 women. They searched for days, but eventually they had to give up. They could not find a trace of anybody there. No one will go there ever again. After that, we changed the subject, because it seemed like the year and a half in the hospital had not helped Slavyan. But when I got home, I called the head of our search party who had sent me to the excavation. She was fine, but her colleague, Palich, had given up on the expeditions. The previous year, 5 people disappeared in the same swamp as in 2014 when we went. The first time, Palich believed it was an accident, but now, he would not go near Siberia ever again, and especially not near that camp. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. When this happened to me, I was in a woodland area with 2 friends. It is directly behind an old school that is now shut down. The only people who go to the old school and that woodland area are us and some local stoners that are about a year older than us. We are just sitting there and talking amongst each other. Suddenly, some guy appears. Sounds pretty simple. He has that look that stares straight through you, but he is pretty big and looks entirely unpredictable. He asks us if we know where the bucket machine is. I think Americans call them gravity bongs. There used to be one in everywhere that was quiet around here about 8 or 9 years ago. I tell him that we don't, but there could be one nearer the school. We were not far away from the school ourselves. He continues, staring straight through me. He asks us to show him. I tell him we don't know if there is one there, but if there is one, that is where it will be. He states that he has cannabis, solid kind, and pulls it out inside of a money bag from his inside jacket pocket. He tells us that if we show him where it is, he will give us some. He still keeps staring and has us completely on edge. We try to get rid of him by pointing where to go. He insists we take him to it. We tell him to lead the way and we will direct. We start to slow down and let him keep on walking by himself. He turns around and says, "Come and have a look at this. It's so peculiar. Just Come over and have a look. He does that terrifying stare again. I absolutely shit my pants and run directly into the woods. I hear the noise of running behind us. I make the assumption he is running in the opposite direction because we did not want to get assaulted and murdered within minutes. That was really fucking terrifying. We all thought he was the police, trying to get us on some kind of entrapment sting, but he was far too odd to be with the police.